In the room she had shared with her sister, Lark stared at the ceiling as the man moved atop her. He made no noise and did not try to kiss her. Everything about him, his hands, his flesh, that part of him battering itself within her, was rough. The knife was on a round table beside her bed. She knew that if she reached for it, he would kill her. And perhaps he was so adept at murder that if she even thought about reaching for it, he would kill her. And so she stayed in that safe place in her mind, that far and distant place, which was a memory of her mother holding her hand and by candlelight reciting the nightly ritual before going to bed. Do you believe in God? Yes, Mama. Do you believe that we need fear no darkness, for he lights our way? Yes, Mama. Do you believe in the promise of heaven? Yes, Mama. So do I. Now go to sleep. The man was still. He had finished in silence with a hard, deep thrust that almost conquered her refusal to break before the pain. The tears had coursed over her cheeks and she had bitten her lower lip, but she had not sung for him. Mama? It was the voice of a child, but not Robin's voice. The man's hand went to the knife. He slid off her. Lark lifted her head, the muscles taut in her neck, and looked at her mother standing in the doorway. Faith was holding both hands to her private area, her face half masked by shadow and the other half sweat shining. Mama, she said in a childlike, horrifying voice, I have to water the daisies. It was what Robin always said, and what Lark knew her mother had said to Grandma when she was a little girl. Hurry, Mama, the child in the doorway pleaded. Lark heard the man begin to laugh. It was the slow sound of a hammer nailing a coffin shut, or the hollow cough of a puppy choking on worms. She almost turned upon him and struck at him then, almost, but she let the rage go, and instead decided she would try to keep herself and her mother alive as long as she could. Never seen that before, said the man. By all means, get her to a chamber pot. Faith allowed herself to be guided, to be directed and swatted and wiped. Lark realized that her mother's dull blue sunken eyes no longer saw anything but what she wished to see. And if those were scenes from nearly 30 years ago on an English farm, then so be it. Faith gave no reaction to the man's presence, and not even after Lark had put on her clothes again, and the man instructed Lark to heat a pot of water and fetch a pair of scissors because he wished to shave. Not even when the man had drawn the last stroke of his razor and the devil's beard was gone. He put on a pair of her father's stockings, a pair of his brown breeches, a gray shirt, and a beige coat with patched elbows. When the boots came off the corpse and went onto the man's feet, Faith asked Lark if they were going to town today to see someone named Mrs. Jane Penny. You remember, Mama, Faith said as she walked across the kitchen, avoiding the blood and the bodies like a child making her way through a blighted garden. About the lace. The man had his tricorn hat on and his haversack with a pistol in it around his shoulder. He waved away the flies, which had arrived just as he predicted. We're going to the barn, and you're going to help me harness the team. The afternoon sun was bright and warm, the air cool. There were only threads of clouds in the sky. In the barn, as Lark got the harness down from its hooks beside the wagon, Faith sat on the ground outside and played with some sticks. The man brought one of the horses from its stall and was getting the harness on when Faith said excitedly, Mama, somebody's coming. Instantly, the man said, bring her in, quickly. Mother, Lark said, but the woman just stared blankly at her. Faith, she corrected, her mouth tasting of ashes. Come in here. Hurry. Her mother, an obedient child, got up and entered the barn. The man rushed to a knothole facing the road and peered out. Within seconds, he turned to his haversack and took from it a spyglass, which he opened to its fullest extent and put to the knothole. Lark reasoned that the approaching visitor was still distant. There followed a silence. As Faith stood beside Lark, grasped her hand, and kicked idly at the straw. The man grunted. I am impressed, he said. Found himself an Indian guide as well. He lowered the spyglass, closed it, and returned it to the haversack. He stood rubbing his bare chin, his cold eyes moving back and forth between the woman, the girl, and the wagon. Then he walked to an axe leaning against the wall, and when he picked it up, Lark caught her breath. He chopped out two of the spokes from one of the wagon's wheels. Then, with quick and powerful blows, he began to destroy the wheel until the wood splintered and broke and the wagon sagged. He threw the axe aside, reached again to the haversack, and brought out two items that he offered to Lark. Here, he said. Go on, take them. There was impatience in his voice. Lark accepted the gold coins. And once they were in her hand, they were visible to Faith, who made a cooing noise and wanted to hold them. The young man's name is Matthew Corbett, said the man, and Lark noted that small beads of sweat had bloomed on his clean upper lip. I want you to give those to him. Tell him we're square as far as I'm concerned. Tell him to go home. He strode to the rear of the barn, where he kicked enough boards loose to crouch down and get through to the orchard beyond. But tell him, he said when his way of escape had been made, that if he wishes to find death, I will be glad to give that to him also. He took his tricorn in his hand and knelt down. You aren't going to kill us? Lark asked, as her mother rolled the gold coins between her palms. The man paused. He gave her a slight smile that contained in equal measures both disdain and mockery, but not a whisker's weight of pity. Dear Lark, he said, I have already killed you. And with that, the man pushed his shoulders through and was gone. So he's not a nice guy. So the book is about Matthew refusing to give up, and all sorts of terrible things happen to Matthew in the course of this book, but he keeps at it. He keeps at it, and that's Mr. Slaughter. Questions? Can I? Where does it come from? I have no idea. It scares me sometimes. I don't know. It scares my family too. Well, actually, the book, I'm doing a series of books about this young man who's a problem solver, detective in New York in the colonial era. Fascinating. The research has been fascinating. I'm planning on doing 10 books in the series. The next one is called The Providence Rider, and it's all set up. But the next book, actually, I'm writing is a contemporary novel. I'm writing about a rock band who are a struggling rock band who decide for their last tour they're going to write a song together, and it goes from there. You know, moving between the worlds, the colonial worlds and the contemporary world of rock and roll, it's been really tough, but I think I can do it. I think I can do it. I hope I can do it. Because again, it's a book that, you know, it all starts with something that you want to read. This is something that I wanted to read, so I had to write it. Nobody else is going to write it. The book about the rock and roll band is something I want to read. Nobody else is going to write it, so I got to do it. But anyway.
We have time for maybe one more question, real quick. Anybody have a question?
Well, I think probably it goes back to Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury, of course, Stephen King, Peter Straub. I have a lot of science fiction writers I enjoy. And actually, I've started reading a lot of science fiction lately from the 60s. I used to read a lot. And I had all these science fiction books that somebody threw away. They're my mom, or I throw them away. It's one of those stories where you want everything back that you could possibly get, so you go to eBay and get everything back as much as you can get. So that's what I'm reading now. But I read a lot of histories, biographies. I read a lot. But you know, it's funny. I haven't found lately a book that I really enjoyed reading. You know, it's a wonderful thing, because I read at night before I go to bed. It's a wonderful thing to find a book that really takes you in, you know, and you believe you are there. When you read this book, you know the people, you are absolutely there. I mean, that's the most wonderful thing in the world, and that's why I write, to create something like that. First of all, for myself. This series is sort of like a time machine. I wanted to know what the world was like back then, and I had to learn what it was like, and it's nothing like what we were taught in school. It was rough and mean and vicious and tough. But it's been worthwhile, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I enjoyed being a writer I was a full-time writer, began full-time writing in about 1977. And I'm still here, still doing it. Hope to be doing it for a long time yet to come. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank Alabama Bound for having me here, and thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And if you will all stay seated, Mr. McCammon is going to move to the signing table, and he would welcome you to come by and say hi and let him sign a copy of the book for you.